Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being the show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Lincoln Lawyer Season 1, Episode 8. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, obviously, they're continuing in court, and they're still without their magic bullet, and they still can't identify the guy that Jerry met with at the casino at the time. So, they're going into court trying to knock down as much of the prosecution's case as they can. So, obviously, Mickey is well prepared. He knows, he knows what's coming up. So, the prosecutors put Sonia on the stand, and basically, she's trying to infer that Trevor isolated Laura from her, as well as all of their friends. That obviously, some of her statement had to get struck from the record because it's the jury had to ignore it because it was speculation and not fact-based. That, Laura was the greatest coder ever and she was always going to be in the shadow of Trevor because the business they started, Parallax, is his baby and not hers, and she would always play second fiddle to him. So she's trying to paint the narrative of Trevor's a very controlling person. She gave that same statement to Mickey, but Mickey flips it upside down. It's like, okay, you emailed Trevor a little after your discussion with your talks with Laura, because it's Laura sent her the email hey, let's meet up, but the day they were supposed to meet up was the day after she got murdered. But then he's you emailed him, and she's we haven't really talked over what was that email about? You say all this about him being controlling in this, but now you want to talk to him. It's I was hoping to bury a hatchet. It's but you've also emailed him 20 times because when was the last time you got a promotion in your job? She's it's been a few years. She's 6 exactly. You were trying to get a job from him. So it kind of paints how can you credibly, because she has a vendetta against him already of he hasn't given you a job. Not saying that's all there is to it, but all Mickey has to do is create that little seed of doubt in the jury to be can we really trust her testimony because she's a little biased in this because she was trying to take advantage of the situation to, this is prior to finding out about Laura being dead, but it's she was trying to, now that Laura reached back out, it's now he will have no choice but to kind of potentially listen. So it's you were trying to, put yourself in a more favorable position business-wise, and now it's cool, now that things didn't work out, he can paint the narrative that, you hold a little resentment towards him. I don't remember if it was at this point or whether it was later, but Trevor grabbed onto Mickey's arm at one point in time, and Mickey was fucking let go of my arm, Trevor. The fucking jury's watching. It's because the point is we're supposed to be a united front, and anything that you do, your actions can still be seen on the court. So he's probably lucky no one saw that. Who knows if they did or didn't, but so things kind of worked out on that front. Then it comes into the whole GSR gunshot residue situation. So initially, Mickey's point was to discredit the guy in particular because basically one of his previous cases, in fact, I think it was the last case he got before the Elliott case when it came to the GSR, was that for one, he's transference would be on a much smaller scale, but the amount of GSR on Trevor, there's no way it could have been a transference situation. So now the whole point is, okay, now you're just trying to discredit this dude, and Mickey trying to use his previous case of it had to get completely thrown out of court because said guy didn't account for the person he was testing for gunshot residue to be an engineer and kind of exposed to that element. So, but the problem is that the guy admits that his work is now being double-checked by his supervisor, and it's wait, what? And Mickey got blindsided by that because his copy of the report didn't have the home dude's supervisor. Her initials are CT. On the prosecutors, they have it at the bottom of their report, but not the defense doesn't have that, so he didn't have time. You can see the littlest bit of the J. It's you can see it cut off, and he's trying to say hey, I'm sorry. He's I'm sorry. At least Golance is I'm sorry to the court and to Mr. Holler, but the judge is no, it's in play. You've already went here, and you would have had opportunity to find out that something was wrong if you had asked for a continuance. So you wanted to rush to the court, so that kind of on you. We got to let it fly. Which Trevor's pissed at him, but Mickey's pissed back at him is that you son. I wanted a continuance. We wouldn't have gotten blindsided, but you wanted to rush to court. He's like, you know we're on a timetable. This isn't just my life. This is your life on the table too, Mickey. It was like, I was like, ooh, backhand him, Mickey. Because I'm like, you're the one that rushed this. You're the one that wanted this so quickly. You know, but it's like, for him, it's like, you're a good lawyer. You're supposed to be on top of this. He's like, man, now I'm wishing that Jerry wasn't dead because I wish he was still here instead, was my lawyer instead of you. I'm like, well, Mickey couldn't say anything, but it's like, you bastard. Well, I'm all you got. You know, because no matter what, Mickey's the one that decided to take the case. Trevor kind of set up the limitations ahead of time, but he's the one that told Mickey. Mickey had opportunities to walk away, and he didn't because once, as Trevor puts it, you need this just as much as I do. And so Mickey's spending the next part of the episode just racking his brain around it because that GSR is going to be the death of them. Because at the very least, if they could deal with the GSR, it would have helped their case a lot. Because it's like, oh, it proves that Trevor never touched a gun. Because they don't have the murder weapon, but the GSR on his hands is such damning evidence that it's like, at the very least, if they can get rid of that, that would have been the way to dismantle all of this by discrediting the guy who runs who tests the GSR, but now they're kind of backed into a corner. Now it's like, no, like the work has been double checked, so it's not just that dude who checked it, his supervisor did too, and everything's copacetic, so it's like, right. So Mickey's playing it over and over again, trying to figure out who that guy is that was in the video with Jerry in front of the casino. It's like, who is this guy? What was Jerry meeting with him? What did he pass on to Jerry? Then Mickey goes to the casino and he sees, looking around, he's staring at the billboard that's got Laura's photo from the game. Then he sees some cop cars passing by. I'm like, what's that about? He follows them to a nearby place where they kind of get checked up on and stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm still not seeing connecting the dots here. And then he starts rewinding it over and over again. The whole situation. I'm like, okay, what's that all about? And then things started slowly clicking in place. The way he compares it is he talking about having a client who it wasn't about the money. It was just the satisfaction of cracking the case. He's like, I've never broken into a safe, but he's like, I know that moment of just like when all the stars align, when you get that last digit and you get that click, that satisfaction of I've got it all figured out. And the moment Mickey went to court, I was like, now I see where we're going. Eli Wims was technically the magic bullet. He was the magic bullet, in fact, because it's like, right. So there's no way that was just a coincidence. You know, it was the same day as like Trevor getting arrested as Eli. So it's like, but it's like, could that really be all there was to it? And it's like, nope, he was in fact not just the magic bullet, the magic bullets, because you had Mickey like unveiling everything little by little, getting the guy who captured the video. He not only got the one of Trevor's arrest, but earlier he had gotten Eli's arrest as well. And it's like, wait, we weren't aware of this. And Mickey's like, no, it was there in the video the entire time. It's not my fault. You only watched the Trevor parts and not the Eli part. I'm like, boom, got him. And then, like, it's like, all right. And you can tell Golance is like, I don't see the relevance here. Okay, sure, whatever. And so then they brought in, God, I forgot his name now. It's like, wait, we haven't, like, talked to this witness at all, is what Golance was saying. But Mickey's like, literally, me neither. I don't know the guy's name because I only learned it a second. I was like, wait, you're gonna cross-examine a guy that you just met? It's like, yes, sir. So he does it, and it's like, what do you do? Well, he runs, basically, they fix up LA cops cars because they have to be out in shifts. So, like, hey, here's a car. You need to ship it out beforehand. Clean it up, get it repaired and stuff, because the car that Eli shot at ended up having a busted taillight, so they needed to repair it, but they needed to get it in and out in an hour, so they didn't have time to clean the interior. They fixed up the exterior a little bit, and it turns out that's the same car that Trevor got arrested in. And then they bring in their gun expert, which I should point out that actress, her name is, I looked it up, Anna Kaja. I hope I'm not butchering her last name. Well, I don't know if it's Anna or Anna. Let's go with Anna. Because people do pronounce that differently. So, Anna Kaja, which I swear there was something super, super recent that I just saw her in, and I saw her in something, I was like, where did I recognize you from? Well, the thing I know her from is, for one, she played Tahani's mom in The Good Place, and more recently in Dara, was it in Dara, or was it in Indira. I think it might have been Indira from World Beyond. The Walking Dead World Beyond is probably the most recent thing. But I swore there was something before this. Not even Fear Beyond. I mean, not even World Beyond. I was like, I thought there was something super, super recent that I saw her in, and I just couldn't place her in. Whatever the case may be. She was the expert, and I love the whole thing of like, you know, she running through her credits, and Mickey's like, is that all? She's like, well, I also got this bachelor in like music or whatever. It's like, oh, you got music too? She's like, yeah, I like to sing. And I was like, okay. And so it's like, right, so what about these reports? She's like, yeah, I double-checked them. I agree with them completely. But even she announced the amount of GSR on him is a ridiculous amount. She's like, you wouldn't even get that amount of GSR from firing a gun once or twice, which the whole point is that he fired the gun potentially twice to kill, but once to kill Jans and once to kill Laura. But it's like, it doesn't account for all the GSR on him. And it's like, it's a ridiculous amount on his clothes and his hands. Then it's like, right, Mickey brings it up. This guy, Eli, he lit up 90 rounds firing at the cops. Could that amount of residue have counted for it? Yes. So that would amount for a crap ton of GSR on a person. Then Eli got put in the back seat of that 112 police car. Same one Trevor got locked up. And even Trevor, the moment that was coming up, got leaned in. He was like, whoa! Because even he couldn't explain where all that GSR came from. And now was like, yes. And Golatz's case imploded then and there. It's like, yep. Mickey sits back down. He's like, yeah. So they're on the winning side of things because now they just blew up the prosecutor's case because this was the only thing they had. Because they don't even have the gun as evidence. So this was kind of like their smoking gun, and now that's up in smoke. Okay, so it explains the GSR on him. That can be explained away. Now Mickey's got to add the final touch and point them towards a suspect. In this case, bringing in Anton. Which Anton's trying to say, like, he's not a violent man. It's like, all right, what about the restraining order? Yes, it didn't go through, but it was still in the process of being filed. The only reason why it didn't go through is because he didn't show up in court, which I'm sure that could be a whole conversation in itself. It didn't come up in the episode, but still. So now it's a situation of painting Anton as a likely suspect. And he's like, I'm not a violent man. You're like, oh, you're not a violent man? I was like, go ahead. Hit him with it, Mickey. And then Mickey gets the video that Cisco sent in, and you're like, boom! He's like, I'll kill you. And it's like, oh, is that a gun? And he's like, yeah, what do you think? Come near my wife again, you'll find out. And it's like, oh. It's like, yeah. So did you threaten Jan like you just did my investigator? He was like, I wasn't threatening him. It's like, you didn't just say you were going to kill my investigator. So it's like, boom, boom, boom. So once again, did Anton do it? No, I don't think Mickey thinks Anton did it, but at the very least, the point is to create reasonable doubt. Give them potentially another suspect to look at. Which, you know, Mickey and him are in the elevator, and I'm like, oh, this is super awkward. And I was like, is Anton going to mess with him? But Anton's like, right, you lawyers are all the same. He's like, you know I have an alibi, but the whole point, shifted the narrative, like, yeah, even if you have an alibi, you had your man follow your ex-wife. You had them tell her that's how you found out about the affair. Well, who's to say you didn't have them trail Jan and kill him? Don't do all your men hold guns? It's like, yeah, they do. So it's like, right. So giving them a likely suspect that even if he didn't pull the trigger himself, he has enough connection and resources, and he's shown with his history that, you know, when it comes to this whole affair situation, his wife's affair, he will have men follow his wife. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to believe he could get his men to follow Jan and kill him. So, but Anton's like, right, my business, a lot of people account for my business and rely on my company is built upon my reputation, and you basically shit on my name there. So you could tell Mickey kind of feels bad, but it's like, right, it's just part of being a lawyer, which, you know, back and forth with the fact is of like last two episodes where Haley had issues with who her father is, as like, you know, he defends people, and it's like, right, now she already had to come to terms with like you defending Trevor, and you add the extra layer of, now it's like, cool, you're kind of destroying people's reputations in the process, because once again, Mickey knows most like, well, because they actually know they haven't really leaned into it, but they know who's responsible for Laura and Jan's death. It seems like it's Sergei and his people. At least Trevor's kind of pointing it more towards that. But at the very least, you definitely know it's not Anton, but you needed a viable scapegoat without bringing Sergei and them into this, because that would have been a whole issue in itself. So aside from that little element to it, everything's kind of good and copacetic. Except for Trevor now wants to testify. And it's like, And you have Mickey be like, no, don't do that. Because he's like, if you testify, it could kind of... Because either way, it's not a slam dunk. Yeah, they screwed over Golance's case, but it's still... You never know. It could end up being a hung jury because people might still be split from when it's... Or they, you know, they can never come to a consensus. That could still lead to a mistrial, and that's not what you want either. So... Where things are, they're in the clear at the very least. Things are at least going to lean more their way. Trevor testify, because if he gets on the stand, dude, because the biggest problem for Mickey is like he doesn't know what Trevor might say. But for Trevor, it's still about like, yes, the acquisition is going to go through. Sergey's going to get what he wants. Everything's going to be fine. But I still won't be able to get my reputation back. So it isn't just about the company situation. It is about the public reception of like, yeah, he could get the court on his side, but that won't change public opinion necessarily, because even if he gets like off or whatever, it's still going to be that cloud above his head when it comes. So he feels like he needs to get on the stand to say what he needs to say to clear his name in the public eye as well. But once again, Mickey's worried that if you go on a stand, you're giving Golance the opportunity, because they're saying like, they haven't really covered it in court, which maybe they have, but it's been off screen. We now know that Trevor knew about the affair, and obviously they're pointing to Anton like having known about the affair and his anger getting the best of him. So the same narrative could be painted about Trevor if it comes up about him knowing, because like, right, they've already painted the picture of like potential, even with Sonya's other being discounted a little bit, she still set up the precedent of Trevor can be controlling. So you add in the fact is, oh, he found out about his wife's affair, or at least he knew about the affair, and maybe he lied about it, even talking to the cops that they've omitted certain, during his testimony, he omitted certain things. So when him getting cross-examined, when the prosecutor gets gets an opportunity to like cross-examine him in his testimony and stuff, that could be like the nail in the coffin for them. So it's understandable why Mickey would want to do that. But before Mickey could finish talking to Trevor, which maybe is going to be to their detriment that they didn't get to finish talking, he went to check on Izzy, because Izzy, you know, hung out with her ex. They had dinner. It's like, right, it was awesome. It was awful combination of the two. But for her, it's like, right, things were a lot better than she thought they would be. But the problem is, Izzy got around her ex, and her ex asked her, like, oh, do you want to do some drugs? And she said, I was like a millimeter away from saying yes. Because it's like, right, the temptation plus being around someone you want, like the layers of vulnerability there is because, like, right, being, you know, you would have to be around, you know, your vices again, plus someone who, you know, there's a combination of regret because you're like, right, this person's doing drugs because I made them do, I got them hooked on it, and now she's asking me, and you're getting swept up in all of it. You and her have kind of rekindled things. It's not like you're back together, but it feels good to be back around each other again. So, but when the time comes, Mickey luckily got there. She turned down the drugs, but she was still sitting there because it was just kind of, I think she was just disappointed in how close it came to her doing drugs. Her ex wasn't there, but I guess like she had told her ex no and either went to a different room or turned her ex down, and her ex was like, fine, you're not going to be any fun, and like, we don't know. I do like that he got in because of Terrell. I'm like, once again, I love the aspect of, you know what I mean? Izzy was his first case in the season, so to have Terrell kind of be, who was the second client over the course of the series, because I don't know if he got Terrell's case before he ended up getting Trevor's officially. It might have been, whatever the case may be. He got Terrell's case, and now Terrell's like, yo, like I said, I owe you, man. Like, if you need anything, I got you. I was like, yeah, I love that coming full circle. I figured, like, his connections through those other cases would come around. I mean, he's kind of used all three of his clients in some of those cases, what we've gotten so far. Well, four, because even Eli was a part of this whole thing. So, like, all his other cases other than Trevor's have come to benefit him and work in the long run to help out. So, that's interesting. And I think when Mickey's looking at Izzy, because Izzy's kind of been his foundation, because she's helped kind of keep him in the right track, realize, like, right, there's more to your drug use than you kind of realize. So there's all of that, and I think when he looks at Izzy, knowing, like, how close she was, it's like, right, even that, seeing how much of a struggle it is. Plus, I think the whole conversation about exes, I think that probably makes him think about everything between him and Maggie. So I think there's so many things you could pull from Izzy's circumstances and just see why it'd be weighing on. Because for two, it's like, right, she's become a friend of his. She is someone he cares about. So seeing her like this close to kind of relapsing, it worries him. But it's also like, right, if she can relapse, it just further proves like, yeah, me handling things the way I was trying to handle them before wouldn't have worked. I would have had no chance. And Izzy has been my foundation. She's been my friend up through it all. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. Other than that, he talked with Sherry this episode, Mickey did, and he found out that Sherry found out where Glory Days is, that she's kind of doing kind of like that girlfriend experience. That's just, she's kind of leaving all this behind, and she's kind of doing work like that in Vegas, so it's about trying to get her back, but she does come back every once in a while because of particular clients. So I love that Cisco goes to said client Raj, and he's just like, and sticking his, like, wiping off the table, and then putting his feet up and just kind of relaxing. It's like, okay, Raj, maybe I'll go home and talk to your wife about it, or your mother-in-law, because she's staying with you right now. It's like, ooh, double fold. So, and just like 3, 2, 1. Okay, cool. I just need you to bring Glory Days back to here to LA. If you do that, then you don't have to worry about what happened. Your Glory Day, that secret stays between you, me, and that table. So I thought that was neat. So we're going to be dealing with that, getting Glory Days back, and once again, whether or not she'll testify, that's the whole thing with the whole Jesus thing about because she did up and leave. Maybe there's a reason behind that, but we'll find out maybe next episode. Other than that, in this episode, speaking of Cisco, him and Lorna end up talking a little bit about the fact is like, he's supposed to be working with Cisco's old bike gang, but they're not on the there's no payment thing. It's like, why wouldn't Mickey have records of that? He's like, is it kind of off the table? But I'm wondering, is it because he got payment in some other? Because obviously, maybe Cisco and Lorna don't know that he's got them looking after Maggie and Haley, or maybe it's kind of still connected to the whole getting Cisco out of the gang. So we'll have to find out. But that was just a tiny bit we got part of in this episode, so we'll have to wait and see where that goes. And on the other side of things is that Maggie's kind of backed into a wall by her boss, Janelle, because Janelle's like, okay, you found the potential suspect, but no hard evidence. This is going to have to get shut down, basically saying that they can't handle a loss. And for Maggie, it's like, wait, that's what this is really about? You don't want to go to court because this might be a loss? It's like, her boss was basically saying, basically, you want to do good, you got to get the job first, essentially. So they can't screw things over because this office needs to be impeccable. Everything's got to be airtight. So Langford decides, right, I can help you out. We can get, they need to get Aquino's cell so they can connect him to killing her witness, and that was by Soto's orders. So what he ultimately ends up doing is he gets some cops to pull Aquino over. They take his phone, obviously download his contacts and his messages and stuff like that, and his locations. Turns out he was near the witness, his cell phone put him in the area 10 minutes away from the suspect, but his phone was either it got turned off or the battery died. But they can put him in the general area, but you can tell Maggie's super not okay with the approach, because she's aware of cops kind of busting taillights or whatever just so they could get an excuse to a game banger's car or whatever. And then Langford starts getting to, he's like, whoa, what, are you accusing me of something? You can tell she doesn't like that because it's playing fast and loose. And I think she's probably starting to get why Mickey doesn't like Langford a little bit. But then also you add in the fact is that everything needs to be above board, airtight anyway, and just Maggie's very stickler for the rules, and it's just cutting corners like that isn't something she's happy about. In the end, it doesn't matter because the Aquino's cell phone doesn't directly connect them to Soto, but they still, if they can get Aquino to turn on Soto, that's their last play. They have no choice because it does seem like he is the gun for hire. He is the hitter. So once again, he was pulling, maybe he has to keep up appearances as a day job, but the fact is he was had the flowers and everything makes me wonder, did he already pay someone a visit that they're not aware of yet? We'll have to wait and see. But I'm very, very interested to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.